have Sean Bass. Sean's the VP and CTO of End User Computing, a group at VMware. He has more than 2 decades of experience in consulting and application delivery, and he's now working on the future of end user computing technologies. He also has his own website where you can read a lot of his technical stuff, which is seanbass.com. Please welcome Sean.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. This is my first time in Bangalore, my first time at NASSCOM, so thank you, everyone, for your generosity and how much welcome everyone here has shown me. It's been a great trip. I return home tomorrow, back to my home in Chicago, but it's been a wonderful experience visiting with our development site here in Bangalore and getting an opportunity to come speak to you at NASSCOM. So we queue up. Did you already switch? Oh, this is not on. All right, never mind. Okay. So what I want to talk to you about is the 4 superpowers of massive computing. And I'm going to speak about these items with respect to cloud, with respect to mobile technology, with respect to artificial intelligence and machine learning, and with respect to the Internet of Things and edge. There we go. So first and foremost, I want to speak a little bit about what VMware is set out to do. What we see organizations faced with is this desire to cut across the silos of technology that they're dealing with. And what we try to do is deliver software that helps companies bridge the differences between different technology concepts. This could be things like data center servers, whether they're manufactured by Dell, HP, Lenovo, or other providers. It can be things like cloud providers, whether it's AWS or Azure or IBM Cloud or Google or Alibaba. Or it could be endpoint devices, making a more seamless experience between Microsoft Windows devices and Apple Mac and iOS devices and Google Android devices and Chromebooks. Or it may be bridging the divide between different types of applications. So what do we do with the existing Windows applications that organizations are running on? How do they enable the use of modern web technologies and mobile applications and software as a service applications being delivered from the cloud? Being able to deliver a mechanism that simplifies the management and security and user experience across these silos is what customers are struggling to solve today. Now, I want to share with you a brief history of VMware as a company and what things we've been innovating in. So VMware is now a 20-year-old company, and it all started back in 1998 when 5 people got together that were at Stanford, led by Mendel Rosenblum and Diane, and they set about to transform the data center industry through the introduction of x86 virtualization. Now, virtualization in and of itself was not a new concept. It had been in the mainframe world for quite some time. What had not been done with virtualization is applying it to the x86 hardware infrastructure to allow an existing physical server or physical PC to be turned into a software construct. That process of virtualization is ultimately what led to today's modern cloud computing. Now, in this time frame, 20 years ago, what organizations were dealing with was ever-expanding data centers that were growing at a very aggressive rate as IT continued to grow and technology was adopted in more lines of business. What people were struggling with is they built their data centers around one OEM manufacturer. So your data center is a Dell data center, or it's an HP data center, or it's an IBM data center, now Lenovo. And what IT organizations struggled with is how do they move from one provider to the next? Because when you build a server that relies on device drivers and supplemental software from Dell or HP, that instance of the software and operating system is now bound to that hardware provider. This created a situation that did not give customers the flexibility to easily vacate one vendor and move to the other. So virtualization enabled this use case. And around the mid-2000s, VMware created something called vMotion that allowed you to migrate one software virtual machine to another host, enabling a whole new set of data center operations. So this enabled us to reduce the footprint of data centers by a factor of 10, saving cooling, electricity, and space. And as data networks improved, we started doing data center consolidations, and this also enabled a whole new use case of disaster recovery and business continuity, and improving the speed at which you can perform mergers and acquisitions. Now, VMware believes in being a force for good. In the history of VMware's existence, we have helped reduce 540 million tons of carbon dioxide and impact on the environment. This is the equivalent of driving a car 1 trillion miles. So you can basically drive a car around the Earth 40 million times with the amount of carbon reduction that we've built through this technology. This next act that VMware had is to embrace ever-changing mobility. Now, the mobility industry changed rapidly in 2007 with the introduction of the iPhone. There certainly were smartphones prior to the iPhone, but it revolutionized the industry. And what IT organizations were faced with is struggles of people not wanting to have two devices, wanting to have a personal device and a corporate device, but merge those functionalities into one. So we started enabling this capability. At the same time, we're now seeing this proliferation of endpoint devices. So organizations are struggling to manage the differences between Windows devices, Mac devices, iOS devices, Android devices, Chromebooks, virtual desktops, virtual apps. So we've designed a set of software in something called Workspace ONE that democratizes these platforms and gives customers a consistent experience as they move between devices, unlocking productivity and reducing friction to adoption of a new technology. One other really important thing is we've done some studies with analysts that have discovered that organizations that have highly engaged, productive employees leveraging the technology we provide to them are outperforming their peers by about 141% on an earnings per share basis. So what does this mean? This means people not waiting 3 weeks to get a new laptop, not waiting days to get new applications, but having a self-service model to consume those things immediately. The next act for VMware was to break the chains of networking. Because right now, what we did for the data center OEM hardware computes, customers were struggling with doing the same thing with networks. So we built a network virtualization platform called NSX that allows customers to get out of the complexity of taking days or weeks or months to create new firewall rules and new capabilities in the network, and allows you to democratize all of the hardware manufacturers for networking and simplify the application of policies and security across a virtual network. Now, Act 4 for us was getting to cloud migrations. Now, as cloud computing became a big thing, we found that moving existing legacy applications to the cloud is actually a very difficult thing to do. And in fact, when customers were faced with trying to move from private cloud to public cloud, we had talked to one government CIO who, over the course of 2 years' time, was only able to move 2 of their key 200 applications from their on-premises data center to the public cloud. So we introduced something called the hybrid cloud that allowed customers to use the same tooling they use on-premises in the public cloud environment. That's the VMware Hybrid Cloud solution. And what we're finding now is that customers, that might have struggled to move one application from on-premises to the public cloud, it's now really difficult when you're trying to move an application across multiple public clouds. And in fact, there's a study by Deloitte that says average businesses today use about 8 public clouds in their daily operation, and this is set to be well over 10 public clouds in the next couple of years. Mastering the complexity of dealing with the different security policies and operational management across all these public clouds has become a very difficult thing for enterprises to deal with. So I want to talk to you about 4 main topics. And these are all things that VMware is working on, but I'm not going to talk in specifics to the things that we're doing here. I'm just going to talk about the opportunities that the industry has. So first on cloud. Cloud has unimaginable scale. At this moment, there are about 100 million virtual machine workloads running in on-premises data centers. That number continues to grow. But in addition, the new workloads being deployed to public cloud or being migrated to public cloud are growing at a rate of about 3 times growth of what the on-premises environments are growing at. So workloads in the public cloud are set to triple in number by 2021, and the global amount of data throughput in public cloud is also set to triple through 2021 to a total of 20 zettabytes of data in that time frame. It's an unimaginable amount of scale of compute, storage, networking, and security and policy. Now, when we look at what customers are trying to solve, they're straddling between this hybrid cloud that is driven by IT operations and public cloud, where most of the public cloud consumption today is net new applications that people are designing around DevOps CI/CD models, where they are designing those applications to run in the public cloud today. But customers also have to figure out how to get those 100 million workloads that run on premises today up into the public cloud through a technology like hybrid cloud. And these are very different buying centers and very different requirements that the line of business app developers versus the IT infrastructure people need to deal with. The reality is all customers are trying to find out how to get out of running a data center business. Customers want to move from CapEx-related infrastructure changes to an operating expense model where you pay for the utility computing that you use. All businesses are faced with this problem right now, and hopefully all of you in this room are in a similar position straddling these two models. Now, I want to talk about the line of business developer piece. Most mobile application development or cloud application development is being done on container platforms today as opposed to virtual machine platforms. But container platforms introduce a whole new set of challenges around security and storage and networking and monitoring. These are things that we've largely solved in the virtual machine space, in the data center space over the last 20 years. But now these are all new challenges we're having to reinvent in the container space. And security in particular is a really important one, because how containers operate is they have a shared kernel memory space with the underlying operating system that the container deploys on top of. The issue when you have a shared kernel memory space is any ability to break out of the software sandbox of the container means that I can then attack another container running on the same host. So there's a ton of security-related issues in the container world, and there are many startups that are trying to address issues around security, storage, networking, monitoring, automation, orchestration on the container front. There's also opportunities to leverage the existing virtual machine technology we have to add some of these benefits to the container technology. VMware is spending a lot of time on our PKS initiative with Google to apply some of these constructs into the container world. This is a very exciting space for the startup community to pay attention to. Now, from a public cloud challenge point of view, as I mentioned, here is an example of 4 major public clouds, but of course there's Alibaba and many other public cloud providers. And there's also tier 2 cloud providers. There's in the hundreds and thousands of different cloud providers. And in using 8 or 10 different public cloud providers, you find yourselves having a management complexity of thousands of objects, thousands of services, thousands of containers, thousands of applications, and each of them being maintained with different identities, with different security policies, different networking, and different compliance. And the people that are maintaining these systems have to have different knowledge in order to maintain it in each of these public cloud platforms. So what we're working on public cloud is giving a layer of management and security that democratizes the back-end public cloud infrastructure and gives customers a way to express a management or security function in a way that is ubiquitous across any public cloud. From a mobile point of view, we now have unprecedented reach to reach the world's population. 40 to 50% of all people on Earth are now connected to the internet, and your businesses can now reach those consumers. The bad news is, for the poorest countries on Earth, less than 5% of those people are connected to the internet and connected to cloud services. This is a big opportunity for all of us to find ways to lift up the impoverished, get them connected, and help bring them out of poverty by offering access to data and applications and services that can help give them a better edge to improve their life. It's a great opportunity to do good for humanity. The other thing is, in terms of devices, there are 3 billion smartphones, roughly 3 billion smartphones in the world, 1.5 billion PCs, 1.5 billion tablets. There's a ton of devices that we have to make work together. One really important thing, in the enterprise, less than 5% of all applications have been expressed in a native mobile form factor. There's a huge opportunity to evolve web development into hybrid mobile platforms like Apache Cordova and Xamarin and other hybrid progressive web application technologies to bring the benefit of the web into the mobile devices in a way that is powerful. VMware's vision is to deliver any device, whether it's a PC, laptop, smartphone, tablet, whether it's an IoT device, whether it's a mobile printer, whatever the device type is, and extend any application to it in a secure way that can run either on a private cloud data center or in the public cloud. And I want to spend a time for a moment and talk about the opportunity in telco. The number of instances of virtual machine capability that's possible in telco is equal to all of the enterprise compute that exists today, roughly 100 million units. But today, the enterprise data center is 80% virtualized, and the telco space is less than 10% virtualized. This is a huge opportunity for all startups to find ways to modernize the infrastructure in the telco industry. And with the advent of 5G, all the telcos want to do this transformation in order to offer new and unique services to their customers as they roll out their 5G networks. This is an unprecedented opportunity in front of all of us. There's a new category called network function virtualization that if you haven't learned about this, please spend some time looking it up. It is a massive opportunity for the entire industry to really grow an enormous amount of business in the telco space. Intelligence is now everywhere. AI itself is not a new concept. It's been around for a couple of decades. But there are enhancements to cloud infrastructure, big data scale, CPU and GPU enhancements that are enabling on-device ML capabilities that are really revolutionizing access to machine learning and artificial intelligence. We are augmenting human intelligence in healthcare, making better drugs, improving radiology, cancer detection. We're using it in financial services to support OCR scanning of checks in order to deposit them electronically, and using neural networks to detect fraud in a mechanism that has a higher accuracy than was ever possible with humans. In the auto industry, we have autonomous self-driving cars. We have anonymous data collection that's enabling us to eliminate traffic congestion and improve quality of life for people all around the world. And we're just getting started on AI and ML. Natural language processing is making it easier for people to effectively communicate with their technology and with each other through real-time language translation. Roughly 50% of all developers today are enabling bot, chatbot, or automated assistant, virtual assistant technology in their mobile app and web app experiences these days. Improving access to contextual data that gives you access to a historic amount of anonymized data is really transforming this industry. And when it comes to security, we have to recognize that the attackers are winning against the defenders. We now have in large enterprises over 1 billion events being processed per day that machines are now doing the first pass to identify what is truly risky versus what is innocuous, and allowing our security operations folks to focus on what's important. We are now learning to better identify malicious behavior through machine learning of all of this data so we can focus on what's important and protect our users and protect our companies. As it stands today, this is an uncomfortable statistic, but in financial services, which is something that we're all very concerned about security, the average dwell time, the amount of time that an attacker remains in a corporate environment is over 180 days right now. That means 180 days goes by before the security team discovers the attacker is in the network. This is simply not acceptable. And AI and ML can help us get better. Currently, we have 7 billion connected IoT devices, another 8 to 10 billion non-IoT devices. And over the next 5 years, these numbers are going to double and possibly triple. The numbers are, of course, estimates. The expectation is somewhere between 30 to 40 billion connected devices in the next 5 years. So where are these going to be used? Smart cities and smart airports, manufacturing, reducing operational risk, doing proactive maintenance on equipment to reduce cost, connected cars for traffic congestion and autonomous driving, healthcare. Home healthcare monitoring is a massive opportunity to reduce the amount of time that patients need to see physicians. And in retail, for unlocking new opportunities to interact with customers in new and exciting ways. there's also a massive amount of data growth. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a twin-engine plane on a 12-hour flight generates nearly a petabyte of data. This amount of data ends up creating a condition, sorry, a terabyte of data. This amount of data ends up creating a condition that makes it untenable to put all that data up to the public cloud for analysis. What this is going to lead to is the ability to have a lot of edge services where machine learning and analytics are happening at the edge rather than in the public cloud. And I already spoke about security with all the events that we're having, and IoT devices will create an avalanche of data. Modern version of a hard hat is an AR/VR goggle that we can allow field service technicians to more effectively service parts without wasting time or replacing parts that don't need to be replaced. So the most important thing as a takeaway from this, all four of these technologies are feeding each other. What gives these technologies superpower status is that they reinforce and accelerate each other. Cloud enables more mobile connections. Mobile creates more data. More data makes AI better. And more AI creates more edge use cases. And more edge creates new cloud opportunities to consolidate and analyze the data. So these superpowers of computing are reshaping every industry. And I hope that you guys are excited, as we are at VMware, to shape the future of the technology with the help of these superpowers. Thank you very much.